Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. Thank you for hearing the bill today. And I will just start by saying that we are proposing a technical author's amendment as described in the report, so thank you for accepting that amendment. SB 219 will help protect LGBT seniors who are living in long-term care facilities, protecting them from discrimination and helping to make sure that these seniors are aware of their rights. LGBT seniors are among our most vulnerable seniors. They often lack traditional family support networks available to non-LGBT seniors, and they need protections as they enter long-term care. A recent study of LGBT seniors found that nearly 60% of participants reported that they live alone.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
Okay. They are seniors who tend to struggle a lot more than other seniors and don't have the same support networks, including people to advocate for them in long-term care the way that an adult child would typically advocate for a parent in a nursing home or assisted living. We know that these seniors they have really honestly gone to hell and back many times, fighting for our community over the years, fighting to advance LGBT civil rights, surviving the HIV epidemic. And we now owe it to them to make sure that they are protected. We know that there are issues, not in all facilities, but there are issues in facilities where LGBT seniors who have been out of the closet their entire adult lives go back into the closet, where people are now allowed to be with their partners. And this bill will provide a basic level of protection specifically for these seniors. And I ask for your aye vote. With me today is Joe Michael from Equality California, which is our sponsor.
Thank you. First witness, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Joe Michael for Equality California. I will keep this quite brief. As the senator was saying, LGBT older adults are particularly in need of clear protections in the context of long-term care. Unfortunately, many LGBT elders either face risks of discrimination or choosing to go back into the closet after being able to live openly for many years and really being the leaders for the LGBT community for quite some time. So that's a really unfortunate situation that this bill would rectify. California already has a lot of the strongest civil rights protections for LGBTQ people, including in housing and public accommodations, but this bill is needed to make sure that LGBT older adults can rely on California law to protect them in the context where they need it most. So respectfully urge the committee's support today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in support?
Sure. Mr. Chair and members, Caitlin Vega for the California Labor Federation. We think this is an important protection for our retirees, and we're here in support. Thank you.
Heather Harrison with the California Assisted Living Association. We're in support of this bill. I want to thank the author and his sponsors and all the staff who worked with us throughout the process. This is an important issue for our members, and we're happy to be able to register our support.
Thank you. Others in support, if you could just give your name and your affiliation, please.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Virginia Farah-Matani. I am a volunteer with the Capital Response Team with ARP. ARP stands in support of this bill, ABE 219. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry.
Cut in front of you real quick.
Kathy Sunderling McDonald with the County Welfare Directors Association in support.
Jen Flory with Western Center on Law and Poverty in support.
Anyone else in support? Seeing none, opposition.
Chairman and members, Barbara Glazer with the California Hospital Association. We are not opposed to the bill. We are now neutral. We were opposed earlier, but after working with the author, his staff, and the sponsors, we just wanted to say thank you to them for taking some clarifying amendments that help us out with some operational issues, but we are neutral at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair members, Matt Robinson with the California Association of Health Facilities. We also did not have a position on this bill. We were opposed, but we want to thank the author and the sponsor for all the hard work that we did. We worked together on this bill to address all of our concerns, and we are now neutral on this bill. So thank you very much to the senator and the sponsor.
Thank you. Opposition.
I'm
sorry, hold on just a second.
Okay. Very quickly, Kevin Baker, American Civil Liberties Union, support. Thank you.
All right, thank you. No. Opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is Greg Birch, and I work for the California Family Council. I'm here on behalf of tens of thousands of Californians, allied organizations, and over 2,000 churches across the state. No one deserves to be harassed or mocked or be kicked out of a residential facility for identifying themselves as transgendered. So we don't have a problem with that part of the bill. What we do have a problem with is making it illegal to hold a particular view of gender. There are two competing views of gender here. One view says that gender is determined by biology. The new view, promoted by Senator Wiener and others, is that gender is a matter of personal choice. These are two strongly held views. Living in a free country as we do, those who have these opposing views need to find a way to live with each other, to tolerate the existence of each other without using the government to punish those on the opposing side. This bill says a private organization determines gender in a traditional way by biology, and that belief is reflected in the way they separate genders in rooms and bathrooms, then the state will run you out of business. Those opposing this bill are saying, if you disagree with me about my view of gender, you are discriminating against me. This is not tolerance, this is not love, and this is not mutual respect. People have sincerely held religious views about gender that are not based on malice or hatred, but this bill seeks to make their view of gender illegal. Now, I know you all believe in the First Amendment, or you say you do, and here's my question. How can you believe in free speech if you think the government can compel people to use certain pronouns when talking to others, as this bill proposes? Compelled speech is not free speech. Can a government compel a newspaper to use certain pronouns that aren't even in the dictionary? Of course not. What is coming next? What about TV reporters? Can you compel them to use certain pronouns? I would love to know how far you are going to take this. If you can do this with senior facilities, are you planning to mandate the use of these new pronouns for the entire population? The public deserves to know. California is a diverse state of people with different views, especially about gender. True tolerance tolerates people with different views. We need to treat people with respect, but respect is a two-way street. It is not respectful to threaten people with punishment for having a sincere held belief that is different from your own. And so I respectfully ask that this bill be amended to respect those who sincerely believe that gender is based on biology. Thank you.
Thank you. Next opposition, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Kevin Snyder with Pacific Justice Institute Center for Public Policy, where I serve as Chief Counsel. This bill suffers from 4 legal defects, and I'd like to very briefly go through them. First, there's no provision that has a religious exemption for religious institutions. There are more than 100 long-term care facilities operated by religious organizations in California. Caring for the weakest members of society has been the task of Christians for 2,000 years and the Jewish community for 3 millennia. Faith-based facilities therefore integrate religious tenets into their global mission and day-to-day operations. As a matter of conscience, these institutions would confine sexual relations to residents, to a man and a woman who are married to each other. Related to this, religious homes would oppose persons of the opposite biological sex from sharing a room. By exercising their religious liberties through their conscience, these religious facilities would be subject to criminal sanctions. Second problem, the bill requires staff and independent contractors to use the resident's preferred pronoun. Those who drafted the bill are under the misapprehension that the LGBTQ community has but 2 genders, male and female. But Facebook has identified 58 genders. In line with this, the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Resource Center has produced a non-exhaustive list of 30 pronouns. A facility staffer or independent contractor must keep track of and use these pronouns upon pain of being subject to criminal prosecution. Third, the bill requires an institution to use the, quotes, correct name of the resident. But the correct name does not mean the actual legal name, but rather whatever name the resident happens to make up. If one wishes to change their name, there's a legal process to do that. One files a two-page judicial counsel form in the Superior Court and pay the filing fees. But here the bill requires the institution to actually change its own official records without legal process. Moreover, under the bill, a resident who insists that the nuns caring for him, her, they, or they use the name Lucifer, the sisters must do so or face jail time. And finally, and most importantly, this bill is unconstitutional because it compels speech. It is conceded that an individual has a free speech right to call themselves any given name or make up their own pronouns. But that liberty interest cannot compel a third party to utter a specific name or pronoun. Compelled speech like viewpoint discrimination is an especially pernicious type of content-based regulation. As the Supreme Court has said, compelling editors to publishers to publish that which reason tells them should not be published violates freedom of the press. So too does forcing an individual to use a pronoun or a name which they reasonably believe is incorrect violates freedom of speech. In sum, the same guarantees of freedom of speech that a transgendered person enjoys also protects, in equal proportion, the rights of a third party not to speak something they are disinclined to communicate. And so, Mr. Chairman, I urge that this body vote no on this bill. Thank you for your deliberation and for your service to the community.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee. Yes, Ms. Garcia.
Not a question, but a comment. On calling someone by their preferred name, and the opposition in detail made it sound really complicated. But I'll give you my example. My name's Maria Cristina, so my legal name's Maria, but I've asked everyone to call me Cristina all my life, and people have adjusted, and it hasn't been a real issue anywhere, including my university transcripts and so forth have adjusted. And so I think it's not hard to follow through with what someone's asking you to call them. I will also say that this idea of biology, as someone who had the privilege to be in academia for a really long time, we build on our science. And so I think as biology has evolved, it's not just the traditional sense. We see now that gender is biological, and there is a spectrum out there, and science is starting to show that also now. And so I think if we're going to go to the opposition's argument about biology shows us that it is a spectrum out there, and it's not simple as male, female, as we were thinking out there. And so that's what science is. It grows over time. It's not that we were wrong, but we've expanded on it out there. And so I would just also like to oppose to the opposition statements on biology on this issue. And so I thank the author for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Mr. Kalra and then Mr. Chiu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to thank the author and sponsor for bringing this bill forward. And as Senator Garcia indicated, that the reality is that this is about not just someone's personal choice. And I think that continued false argument of personal choice and personal views and acting on one's personal views is not at the crux of what we're talking about here. We're talking about giving equal access to everyone for especially long-term care. And as I chair the Aging Long-Term Care Committee, it's clear that it's becoming much more difficult every year for seniors that need long-term care, that need places to go, to find those places and to create additional barriers based upon who one chooses to love or who one is completely unacceptable. And we've heard these same arguments time and again, whether it was women, whether it was African Americans, that letting people act on their views should take precedence over our constitutional rights and our obligations as a society to ensure that everyone is part of that society. And I think especially as lawmakers, we should really be truly seeking to build a community that's loving and accepting of all. And that means that sometimes, yes, that we have to really put legislation in place that ensures it, because we know that if we just allow people to act on their own views, it wouldn't happen. And so for that reason, I'm strongly supportive of this bill. And, we're always going to strive and move in the direction of creating a fully equal and loving society. We've never been there. We're making our strides and moving in that direction. And we're going to keep on fighting until we get there.
Mr. Chiu.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief, but I want to thank the Senate author for your leadership on this. I want to thank the sponsor for Equality California's leadership on this and how we address the needs of some very vulnerable residents in California, and that is our seniors who are LGBT. And I simply want to say to the opponents that the idea that based on religion, we would allow for discrimination to be focused on some of these most vulnerable Californians is just not one that I think many of us can support. So with that, I'm proud to be a principal co-author of this, and I know this has been moved, but I do hope we can move with as much support from this committee as we can.
Thank you. Comments? All right. Senator, I want to thank you for bringing this forward. This is about dignity. And too often, institutions tend to operate for the benefit of the institution and not necessarily for the individual residents. This is one of those shifts that we've been trying to do in a number of different areas in the legislature, and making sure that institutions are responsible to the individual needs of the people in their care rather than the benefit of the running of the institution without regard to the individual in question. And that's really what this bill is about. And I appreciate that you brought this forward. And Senator, you may close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Frankly, colleagues, you said a lot of what I was going to say in my close, so thank you for getting it. I do want to just say, agree with Assembly Members Kalra and Chiu that the arguments by the opponents, which frankly these are the same groups that have opposed every step forward for the LGBT community in California for decades and decades, and they're entitled to their view, but it's not been the view of this legislature or of a large majority of Californians. And the argument that religious views can create an exemption from civil rights laws, from complying with civil rights laws, is a highly radical notion that would allow, there's no really logical limit to it, that if a business decides, you know what, I don't think men and women should be working together, so I'm not hiring women, and that's my religious view. Or, we've seen with access to birth control in the Hobby Lobby case. So this is a movement in this country to try to completely gut civil rights protections, gender protections in the name of religion. Everyone is entitled to their religious view, but when you enter the public space, when you are running an institution, when you are in a workplace, you are in a civil setting and you have to follow the law, and that's what this is about. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. The motion is do pass as amended to appropriations. Call the roll, please.
Stone.
Aye.
Stone, aye. Cunningham. Chow. Chiu. Aye. Chiu, aye. Garcia. Aye. Garcia, aye. Holden. Aye. Holden, aye. Kalra. Aye. Kalra, aye. Kiley. No. Mainshine. Aye. Mainshine, aye. Reyes. Aye. Reyes, aye. Ting.
That bill is out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Morrell, item 13, SB 559.